Hello, my name is Tyler. I'm a 21-year-old college student, and basically the purpose of this video is to open eyes. Basically, um, I just to get people to realize like God is absolutely real and God is good. But just to give my testimony, honestly, and the true reason why I've given my life back to Christ and decided to live for God completely and to indulge upon His Word and to just to live for Him and not myself anymore. Um, yeah, basically 7 weeks ago and 3 days, I decided to hang out with a friend, and that same night, the entire reason that I wanted to hang out with him was because my ex at the time, she was throwing a party, and there were a couple people who I actually kind of resented. Um, but yeah, basically, I went over to my friend's place, brought beer, we're drinking, having a good time, just regular young adults, college students, just having fun. Then eventually he pulls out, weed and says, "Oh, let's smoke." And I mean, I'm not one of like a common casual smoker, but I usually do it just to fit in, honestly. And I agreed, I did. But before I go on forward, most of you may say, "Oh, the reason this even happened was because of the weed." You know what I mean? Psychedelics, psychosis, and hallucinations and all that. Wait, weed doesn't even make you do that, and who knows? Honestly, I don't know. I don't care. But I know what I witnessed. Sure, most of it was weed, but what happened that night was definitely of evil and was not of God. But the moment I did ask for mercy was when God barged in and stepped in and truly saved me from total condemnation. But basically, my friend pulled out the weed. We smoked through a water bottle. They call it gravity bong, and basically, I cleared the entire thing. And I remember one thing he said. My friend, he was like, "Oh, bro, you're gonna trip real hard, real bad." I'm like, "What?" I was confused because once again, I'm not used to smoking or anything. And I remember my chest feeling like fire. I'm coughing. I'm about to throw up. And eventually, I like run to the couch, and I'm just like, "Wow!" Like the weed truly hit me. And so we're chilling, we're laughing. The weed's kicking in. Then all of a sudden, I started getting paranoid. The usual symptoms of weed and just overdosing, or whatever you call it, greening out. And eventually, I just start tripping. My other friend comes in, whose name I won't mention, by the way. They're laughing at me, talking about League of Legends, video games, and stuff. And I start getting confused, the usual symptoms once again. And eventually, I just can't take it, so I go out to my car. And they walk behind me to escort me, make sure I was safe, which is good. Um, I get to my car, I'm drinking beer, trying to calm down, and they tell me to sleep in my car, and I'll be fine. And so they went back to the apartment, and I'm trying to go to sleep. I'm trying to. I remember that, and I can't go to sleep. I can't. My mind's going everywhere. Um, the weed, of course. Till eventually I decide, oh, my phone. Gotta get my phone or whatever out of the apartment. So I walk back to the apartment, and I remember like every step was so slow. I kept repeating as if I was like going back in time, and just like every minute felt like an hour. And I remember looking at my watch. It was only like half an hour that passed since I like last smoked. Like I remember time and everything. And then eventually, I bumped into a kid who I'd never seen before, and then he motioned for me to follow him, and I did. Um, I don't know why I did, but I remember him dropping a pebble to his right, and he swooped around to his car and turned around and like looked at me, like basically he wanted me to like reach my hand out to the open door, and I don't know why I did, but I did. And then as I did, he slammed my hand on the door and started screaming, "I'm gonna call the cops! I'm gonna call the cops!" And and I hear this voice in my head, and it says to me to pull your fucking hand out right now, and it's just yelling at me, cursing at me, saying all these negative words, and I'm scared. I am so afraid right now. I don't know what's going on. I'm freaking out. My hand's like bleeding, and I yank it out because the voice told me to. And the kid's still trying to call the cops, so I run to the apartment where my friends are. And when I get there, I tell them what happened. I'm freaking out. I'm losing my head right now. And I'm telling them the cops are coming, they're freaking out. And then eventually something weird started happening. I started feeling some sort of negative energy or something. I'm not sure. And basically they, like when I would send or say anything wrong, my friend who invited me, he dropped his expression completely and became nonchalant, and he motioned for me to go outside. He had his hand like this, and I was so confused. I'm like, what's going on? Sure. Do you want me to go outside? And I did. I walked outside, and that kid was still calling the cops. And then I remember some kid I've never seen before walked past me to the apartment, and I walked downstairs where the kid called the cops, and he told me to go back inside. I was so confused, but I did. I went back inside, and my friends, they were all normal again. They were normal, like as if nothing happened. I was so confused. I'm like, what's going on? And eventually, we're all normal again, and I'm like, guys, the cops are coming. And when I would curse or sin or do anything wrong, he pointed for me to go outside again. And I knew this time. I knew what I had to do. So I walked outside. And when I went outside, I seen on the sidewalk there were these kids I've never seen before, and they looked at me. I was so confused. I was so scared. I was so afraid. And eventually, I walked back inside, and I remember a third friend they invited was there, and the first thing he said was "second wind." And they looked at me so serious. I was so confused. I kept asking, "What does that mean? What are you saying? Second wind, second wind?" And they were like, just looking at me, just staring at me. But I felt something so dark within all three of them. I was so confused. So eventually, I got on my knees and I prayed and I asked God, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I remember one of them told me to get up. And eventually, I went outside again. And those same people were out there, and they were laughing. They were laughing at me. I knew they were laughing at me. And as I looked at them, they looked at me, all in sync. Looked at me, all with some sort of evil energy. Walked back inside, and my friends were all normal again. Everything was normal. And I remember me saying, "Guys, what's going on? The cops are coming. The cops are coming." Yet it felt like an eternity passed. The cops weren't even there. But like, my friend said, "Yo, you should just leave right now, bro. If you leave right now, the cops won't question you unless you just stay here and pretend like you're drunk." And I knew it was happening through waves, and I knew I was gonna trip again. I don't know what, but eventually I left, and I decided to walk toward my car again, and I noticed the kid with the calling the cops. He was following me with the phone in his hand. I remember turning around and like taking the phone from him, and he jumped. And I looked at the phone, and I remember looking at it, and there was no one on the line. There was no one on the line. There was a red like icon basically. Like I think I had an Android. I don't know. But I gave him back the phone, and I remember walking out of the entire apartment complex and walking toward my ex's place. I don't know why I went to her place, but as I'm walking, This voice is telling me of all the negative things that I did, telling me how horrible a person I am. I remember it cursing at me, just going in on me, honestly. And I remember still walking and just like super high. Then eventually I went to the apartment complex that my ex lived in, and I noticed a lot of people. Every time I looked at them, they'd look away. Like no one kept direct eye contact toward me. I felt them watching me. I felt like I was being followed, but no one kept direct eye contact with me. No one did. And eventually, this voice is like escorting me. He's telling me where to go. And I remember every time I would stray away to any sort of path, it wouldn't let me. It would not let me. It's like I was in control of my movements, but I wasn't. And eventually, I walked into the parking garage, which kind of, it kind of like, what's the word? It ascends. It ascends. It's one of those ascending car garages where you have to park at different levels. And the voice told me to go into the gate. And I did. I walked into the gate. And then eventually he judges me. And he says, tonight, I killed a kid. He tells me that I stabbed a kid at the party that my ex threw. You know, one of the kids that I kind of resented. And he's going on about all my sins that I've did my entire life. Talking about how I've committed adultery and how I'm gonna burn in hell. Telling me how I'm a liar, I'm a cheater. Just going on. And I'm walking up, I'm freaking out, but I'm still like accepting all this. And I get so sad. Like I feel a depression. I feel such melancholy. I feel such darkness. And his voice is like going in on me, telling me how I'm gonna burn in hell. And one thing he kept repeating was, hell awaits. Then eventually I feel this negative energy controlling me or something. I don't know what it was. But when I denied that I killed someone, I said I'd never do that. But then that's when I felt something in me. Something said, dark thoughts provoke dark actions. And it hit me. Because he was right. He was so right. That night I thought if I were to bump into this kid at the party, you know, I would probably acquit myself. Who knows? I probably would have. And I'd stab him. And that's why I was so convinced that I actually killed someone. And he's just going in on me, telling me how I'm gonna burn in hell for eternity, telling me all this crazy stuff. And eventually, I'm at a level to where he tells me to walk into like the gates of the apartment complex, the hallway, and I did. And I'm in the hallway. It's hot. I remember him like just telling me to walk through here, walk through there. Then eventually I see people who I've never seen before, and they're not speaking to me. And I asked his voice in my head, I'm like, who are they? He's like, these are my spawns, and you'll be one too. And so I walk into this apartment because he opens the door for me, and it's like a party. It's a bunch of people, and they all look at me. And I'm so confused. I remember him telling me why I'm here right now. But I don't remember exactly. I don't remember what was said. I don't recall. But I walked out of the hallway and I kept walking to where he wanted me to walk. And he's still telling me all this crazy stuff. How I'm going to burn in hell. And how Hades is waiting for me. He used Hades. And eventually I get led to an elevator. And the only button the elevator had was down. And that's when I just couldn't accept it. I couldn't, so I ran out. And I eventually ended up in the street somehow. and he's telling me I can't run, I can't escape from hell. I'm gonna burn. One thing he said to me was that I won't burn alone. He told me that my uncle, who's been dead for over 10 years now, he's waiting for me and he's gonna burn with me. We're gonna burn together for eternity. And for some reason, I accepted it. I truly accepted that I was gonna burn in hell for eternity. I've never felt so low in my life. This voice was truly discouraging me completely. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I felt alone. I felt regret. I truly felt like I was gonna get punished for all my sins and for the murder that I did. Which, by the way, I remember the voice also convincing me that I got into my car after I stabbed him and I killed a family of 4 and a couple. I also remember, going back into the garage for some reason. I don't know why, but then I remember going back down, descending, and when he told me that, there were a family of 4 driving up the garage right next to me, and there was a couple driving up the garage right next to me, and I seen them. I seen them. They were actually in front of me, and eventually I left again, and I ended up in the street, and I'm walking, and I'm still getting told all these lies from what I interpreted as a devil, but at the same time I accepted it. I remember getting on my knees to pray, and I'm calling for God. He's like, God is not with you. He kept saying, God is not with you. He can't hear you. You're gonna burn. You're going to hell. And he kept saying, hell awaits. Hell awaits. I got up. I lost all hope. I lost all hope. And I remember walking. I remember him asking, so are you thirsty? And I said, yes. And I remember him telling me to go into a restaurant. I remember walking inside, and I remember taking the Gatorade, and he's him saying, are you gonna pay? And so I remember giving $10 to one girl and $10 to another and thanking them and walking out. I remember drinking the Gatorade and it being so satisfying, so quenching, and him saying, that will be your last drink before you go to hell. And then he kept saying, hell awaits. And he told me that there was a ride waiting for me. It's coming to bring him back to him, which I interpreted that as he was the kid that slammed my hand on the door and he was waiting for me. I was so depressed. I was so sad. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to confide to. And I truly accepted my fate. I remember walking then into a club, and I skipped the lines, but he said he was spewing more lies to me, deceived me basically, and I walked inside, and eventually I walked out or got kicked out. I'm not sure, and I left out of the back door. I walked into a nursing home or something like that, and I walked out, and then I seen one girl who I've met before, and she was on the side of the street crying, and the voice told me that she went to my funeral, and she cried and prayed for me, but all I wanted from her was sex, and he made me feel so discouraged. I felt so bad. I felt so down. I just felt like crap. I felt like I was truly gonna burn in hell, and I accepted it. I remember going to another apartment, and I remember walking into an apartment and then asking my mom, and how is she? And she said, oh, she's going to heaven, but she's gonna die because of what you did, because of your death. She's gonna die. And I felt more hate toward myself. I couldn't believe it, but it was right in front of me. From everything that happened, I was so accepting. Then eventually I walked out to the street again, waited for my ride. But then I got on my knees. I prayed. And he yelled at me. That voice yelled at me. And eventually I asked for mercy. I screamed for mercy. I asked God, give me mercy. Please give me mercy. I prayed. I prayed hard. I prayed long. I didn't listen to this voice in my head. I just kept praying. And eventually I ended up in the middle of the street. And I heard a voice in my head. He said, do not worry. I have been here with you this entire night. I've been protecting you. But you need to do better for yourself. And at that time, I felt so much hope. I bawled my eyes out. I couldn't believe it. I knew it was God. It was definitely of God. It was definitely good. And so I crossed the street, not even caring what cars were coming. Actually, I remember crossing the street and having this it's about a hope. It felt so good, like I was gonna live. And so I called my dad, and I asked him to help me. I asked him, please, Dad, I need you right now. And he was freaking out. Like, he was yelling at me, telling me where was I. I told him where I was. I told him what I did. I told him what happened, and eventually he said, we're on our way. And I called my ex as well, and she was mad. She was cursing at me, telling me how I'm ruining the party and all that, this and that. I'm always doing this. And I told her, please don't curse at me, because at first I thought it was Satan again, deceiving me basically. And she showed up first, and she kept saying, let's go back to your friend's place. I was still convinced that it was Satan trying to bring me back. I was freaking out. I was not going in that car. I actually walked the opposite direction. And she eventually ran over to me, and she seemed so sincere. I seen it in her eyes. And I hugged her. I hugged her so long. I told her to help me. Please help me. I told her as much as I could have. I told her so much. And she was scared for me. I was scared for myself. I was shaking. I was sweating. I was afraid. I was not going back over there. I was not. And so eventually my dad gets there, and my sister, my younger brother. And then he says, let's go back. Look at your car. Let's go back to your friends. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, I'm not going. I am not going to go. I'm not going to go. Because I'm thinking, okay, so Satan can't use her. So he uses my own dad. And I still would not budge. I'm not going back there. And so eventually my dad sees that I truly need help. And he sees the sincerity in my eyes, and he sees that I'm just like, I can't fathom what went on. And he becomes like more gentle toward the entire situation. And I remember them actually trying to take me to there, and I just like jump out of the car. I remember actually my sister crying, and I was gonna run away. I couldn't go back there. And I see the sincerity in her eyes, and I hugged her. I said, please, Patricia, do not allow me to go back. Do not allow me to go back there, please. Don't let me go there. Don't let them take me. And she promised that she wouldn't. She promised that she wouldn't, and I didn't. But eventually we went home. I had to go the opposite direction. I was not going in that direction at all. Eventually I went home. My parents were so let down. They were so disappointed in me. I was disappointed in myself. But that night, everything was so fresh in my mind. I couldn't believe that happened to me. But I knew God had me. And from that night, the next day I went to church. Still had that anxiety. I actually had anxiety for, like, it was hard anxiety for the next few weeks. I still have it now, but I've gotten better. And eventually I gave my life to Christ. I indulged in the Bible, indulged in the Word. I dropped drinking, I dropped smoking, I got into a life of purity, and basically God began to work miracles in my life. Things that I've never, ever expected to ever do in my life. Like I said before all that, like I consider myself a Christian, but I was never truly like devout. I just wore the title. But God, he's worked miracles in my life since then. And he's allowed me to help others and to plant mustard seeds. And to show people just how graceful God is and how good he is and how merciful he is. Because he is. God is so good. Yahweh, I praise him. God is so good. And basically God has shown me so much. You should definitely plug it. It's like 14%. I've learned how big of an aspect forgiveness plays in life. How much weight it relieves. I've learned that to just like drop all sorts of like earthly desires, you know what I mean? And any sort of idols basically in your life that may disconnect yourself from God. Because I had a lot. One of my major sins was lust. You know, still deal with it to this day, but I've gotten a lot better with that. You know what I mean? Taking up purity and whatnot, and disciplining myself definitely. Indulging upon God's word, it's restored my spirit, and it's truly like became like the food that I truly crave. Matthew 4:4, you know, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out from the God. And once again, the purpose of this video is just to inform, you know what I mean, like God is so good. I realize, and I think to this day, like I could be dead right now. I could be dead, condemned for eternity in hell. But God gave me a second chance to live. And I take every day that he gives me. I thank him every day. I praise him every day. I am truly thankful for the life that he's given me. God is so good. God is so good. And I really want you guys to know that who's watching the video. And basically, once again, you'll have your believers and you'll have your non-believers. And I honestly, that's just life. But we are all children of God. We are all children of Christ. And God is the true. He's the light of my life and yours. I just want you guys to know that God is all forgiving. He truly is. And in his word, he mentions that Matthew 6:15, if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespass. And he also mentions in Matthew 10:32-33, whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also with my Father which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. And that's Jesus, you know what I mean? Which he is also so beautiful, so good. And Jesus loves us all. He loves us so much. And all he wants us to do is to have faith in him. That is all we have to do, and love, seek salvation, help others, basically. To not be greedy. Just Christ is good. Christ is so good, and God has shown me. He has shown me, and I'm just here to tell you guys that God is for us. God is definitely for us, and who can be against us? But I pray that whoever's watching this take heed to this video. So that I love you, God loves you, and that we are all connected. We are all children of God. I just embrace Him and live your life for Him, because He loves us so much. We owe Him that. We truly do. But yeah, God bless.